Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Golem Forge Winter Hackathon live stream. I'm Johnny Ghost. I am one of the co-founders of Golem, and I spend quite a significant amount of my time working on this open source project that is a durable agent runtime for building custom agents, code first, supporting TypeScript and Rust and Bit and Scala. And with me today is the winner of the Golem Forge Hackathon, Daniele Torelli. Welcome, Daniele.
Thank you, John.
So today, I'm actually going to ask Daniele to walk us through his winning solution to the Golem Forge Hackathon. So the Golem Forge Hackathon we ran about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and we did that in response to the release of Golem 1.5. So Golem 1.5 had a ton of new features. We managed to make the product tremendously more simple, as well as we shipped it with a bunch of skills that allow coding agents to actually build other coding agents, or any type of agents, really, AI-powered agents or not, on top of Golem. And we wanted to see, how does actually this work in the hands of real users who are trying to build something on Golem for the first time. And so we set up the competition, and it was, I think, a $2,500 grand prize for winner number one. And we had, I think, around 6 different submissions to the Golem Forge Hackathon. And honestly, they all blew me away. And the reason is every single person who started actually built something that worked. And in some cases, they went extremely far, far further than the requirements actually specified. The setup of the problem was, I think, relatively simple to state, but not so simple to implement, maybe. And that is to build something I called Golem Claw, which is basically a personal assistant that you interact with through Telegram. And you can ask this personal assistant to remind you of upcoming appointments or meetings. You can ask it the weather. You can ask it to do miscellaneous things, and it's going to do them on your behalf. You can have it send an email. If you need to get back to someone, you can do stuff like that. And of course, this is very early stage and is not spec'd out to the level of a real personal assistant, but nonetheless, I think there was enough functionality there to get people a taste of sort of what you can build using modern AI native infrastructure like Golem, combined with state-of-the-art models. And so we had 6 different submissions. All of them ended up successfully building some sort of personal assistant agent that you would interact with through Telegram. And some of them even went so far as to enable that personal assistant to book hotels and flights, or to interact with it through voice memo. So you can like leave it a voice memo and tell it to do something, and it will go and do it. So I was really astounded by all that stuff that I never expected to see, but did see. In the end, we had a very difficult time, I think, choosing our winner. But I had to give it to Daniele. And the reason that I did is because of all the solutions out there, he went the deepest on each of the required use cases. So we never required that you be able to book flights and hotels and all this other fun stuff on this hackathon project, even though it's very cool to see that was not a requirement. So instead, I looked at the existing requirements and said, how far did every single hackathon participant go implementing each of these distinct use cases? And also, not just that, but like, what's the overall production grade quality of the submission? And Daniele, I have to say, I think this is one of the areas where your application really shined. It felt like you were building something that I personally wouldn't mind jumping on board and maintaining. And that's generally not true of hackathon projects, because you have so much time. I think we gave folks around 48 hours. You have so much time, and so you're hacking stuff together as fast as you can, and you end up with something that has no tests, right? The code's disorganized, it's spaghetti, it's not something you would ever want to maintain. But I could actually see myself taking over the work that you began. And partially that's because of the discipline that I saw. You had unit tests, you had integration tests, you had system tests, right? You had all this stuff. Your code was reasonably well organized and whatnot, and you went very deep on each of the core use cases. And like from a user experience perspective as well, which is another thing I took a look at, like with a few tiny exceptions, right? You would interact with your personal assistant, and it would give you back nicely formatted results and generally be pleasant to interact with. It didn't feel like I was interacting with a prototype with lots of log messages inside Telegram and whatnot. It felt like you brought a level of polish to this that I really appreciated. And so that's why you won the Golem Hackathon. So before, obviously, the point here is just to understand how you won, right? How you built this thing on Golem, what sort of lessons you learned from this, and maybe to show us around. But before I turn it over to you for that demo, I understand you built the solution for this hackathon on a sailboat. Is that right?
Right. Actually, it is a very fun story for me because I was, yeah, I was building that while I was sailing, and the fact that I won it was even more special thanks to this. It made me, yeah, very happy, and yeah, I was sailing in the Adriatic Sea where I'm doing that recently. It's also time for that right now in the time of the year. And yeah, and then I remembered that there was the hackathon and I didn't want to lose it. So I connected and well, it was a decent connection there next to the coast. So this is what I did for the next 48 hours. It was great. Made me very happy and make it very special.
That's fantastic. So you can work and play at the same time, it sounds like.
Yes.
Good lesson for those who might be interested in participating in future hackathons. And let's be honest, Daniele, this is not the first hackathon you've won, is it?
I participated in many Golem hackathons, but I have to say every time it's like the first time because you build so many features, you do so many changes, pleasant actually changes that we all have to relearn how to work with Golem, but it's in a pleasant way. And you, for example, in this case, I use some of the new feature like the code first HTTP routing. And it was so easy. You made it so easy, too easy. You don't leave any fun anymore to the developers. Almost.
I like to hear that. It's so boring that it's no longer any fun. I like to hear that. All right. Well, Daniele, congratulations again for winning this
Thank
hackathon.
you.
Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it over to you, and we would love to sort of understand what you built it, and any sort of tips you have learning. Obviously, you built it on the sailboat. Presumably, you built it with AI. So, like, give us the full
Yes.
brain dump of what you built, how you build it, and what we can learn, what other developers can learn from your experience.
Thank you. Yes. So I will share a little bit of code and then I will do some brief overview. So hopefully you can see my screen. If not, it will come up soon. Can you see the screen? I think so. Okay. So first of all, what is Golem Claw? It's like John said, a high-level assistant that wants to help you in some everyday tasks. And of course, it's natural that in the everyday task, there are some reminders. There are some web search that you might want the agent to do for you. So what I built, it's this code base that, by the way, is open source and you find it on my GitHub profile. This code base is actually composed of 8 agent types, most of them at user ID granularity. And this because the memory that I wanted them to keep it was per user. And the most important of all those agents is, of course, the user brain agent, as you can imagine. You find a very extensive README. Hopefully, you will be able to run the application without any issues, even by yourself. And if there are any issues, please report them on GitHub, so I will be able to fix them for you. So the user brain agent, it's quite big agent and takes care of orchestrating almost all the actions that the user requests the agent to do. It uses, it communicates with RPC, with other sub-agents, we can call them like that. And also some of them are not a user ID granularity level, but also, for example, the commitment agent is a commitment level. What is a commitment in my code? The commitment is something that you ask Golem Cloud to plan to schedule with another user. So for example, I want to go with my friend to the lake, and then I want to schedule this, or I want them to do something for me, right? And the agent will take care of contacting them and making sure that they can do that, and then we can eventually get that accomplished. So that has a commitment granularity level, because that is a full-fledged, I mean, it has some certain states that we want to really enforce. So this user brain agent takes care of most of the interaction. And then, of course, the LLM router agent takes care of the communication with the LLM provider. In my solution, I didn't want to tie it only to Gemini. I'm a big fan of Open Router. I actually use it also for my other personal projects. So I wanted to give the users the capability to choosing which provider, and specifically which model inside that provider you want to use at runtime. So you will see that we are able actually to switch the model at runtime as well. Yeah, what are the features that I use, and what are the features that I like to use in this code? It was, first of all, the code first HTTP routing. As I said, it made that so easy. I liked RIB. I was a big fan of RIB, but I have to say, this way it's way easier, probably too easy, as I said, to build something with Golem. And then you find everything almost done when you just deploy it, and it's everything there and running. It was great. Then I liked a lot the managed secrets and the typed configuration. That for me was always something that I had to build and hack around. And yeah, the fact that it was built in, mind-blowing. So yeah, it was really great. And also the semantic retry policies for external calls, and the quotas. You can see in some parts of the code, especially for external operations, I did use quotas and I did configure retry policies. And yeah, bottom line, I didn't do this code all by myself. I of course used AI, and let me say that thanks to all the skills that you embedded into the project, that made it so easy. You did so great job with all the Golem 1.5 features, and it was very fun hackathon to participate to, probably the most fun for me. So this is more or less the what was built, and then of course you can explore the code yourself. So for example, the user brain agent, when you ask for to schedule a reminder, it's demanding that activity to the reminder agent that also has user ID granularity, as you can see here. And yeah, there are other agents. It does actually, well, depending if it's deployed locally or in the cloud, it uses Telegram in a different way. Locally, obviously, we are not reachable by Telegram unless you want to open a lot of ports and create some host. But you can actually poll Telegram. There is an agent that is dedicated to that. Is the Telegram poller agent. While if you deploy this code to the cloud, then you will find yourself in the need of defining a webhook, and that webhook is served by another agent. So this configuration is, of course, built in profiles, and you can see that the Golem manifest is very enhanced and full of things that you can explore. As I was saying, there are the quotas, but also the retries that you can find here, and also each environment, I configured three environments: the local test and the cloud has some slightly different configuration. For the test environment, I wanted to return messages from the CLI in the JSON format, obviously because that should be parsed automatically, and there is also a nice continuous integration. And then, of course, there are some configuration flags that, for example, you might want to switch. In this case, they are the same, but for example, for debug, that is the local configuration, we can see that the emails are sent by this address. And like for production, while for testing, we don't really want to send emails. So that is disabled somehow. Yes, so you can see that, for example, also the polling is enabled for local and is not enabled for the cloud, and that is the how we enable different things in the code depending on the environment. Now, I'm sure that all the users that are following us also are already familiar with the concept of manifest, with the concept of durability, and they already played with Golem before. There are some certain features that I give for granted that now all the users will know already. Users don't know Golem, that are, for example, of course, the durability guarantees that Golem poses, and also the agent-to-agent RPC, the fire and forget, and also the environment-specific presets that I just showed. There are other very, very nice features that are about, for example, allow you to define some certain context spans when you do external operations, and that allows some repeatability and retries to happen better. And then also the MCP server. So you can see that also Golem Claw is exposing MCP tools. So if ever you find yourself in the need of creating another agent that wants to communicate with this API, then you will be able to. All right. So before we pass to the how, maybe, do we have any questions?
No questions so far.
Okay. So how do we build something like this solution with the help of AI, of course? Well, first of all, as I said, Golem 1.5 made it so easy, thanks to the skills. But of course, that depends on the developer and depends on how you're disciplined and when you want to use AI. Well, that opens a very, very different topic on general development, I'd say. But what it means maybe today, being a senior software engineer in the times of AI, and you are able actually to do something like that. If you prime and guardrail your AI model very, very nicely, and especially if you are sailing, I recommend you do, because if you want to develop something while you're sailing or while you're doing something else that hopefully is still working and productive, and you need to be able to prime your AI model correctly and giving the right guardrails to develop something that is meaningful, something that makes sense to be built and makes sense to probably have in a production environment. And thanks, John, for saying that. Yeah, this is something that I also liked, that is maybe not fully production ready, but it's something that I would personally build myself if I will have a lot of time to invest. For sure, not 48 hours, but thanks to AI is essentially an extension of your arm, and this is how I like to see it. So it should be an extension of your arm, an extension of your brain, but it shouldn't be something that replaces maybe the expertise of your seniority. So yeah, so this I think is something very important when you want to build nowadays something, and that's why being a senior software engineer, your seniority is something that will guide you through these different times with AI. And this is something that helped me personally when I want to build some personal project and maybe in 48 hours build something that I would myself like to use on production tomorrow. So yeah, maybe what are the practical steps that I followed to design Golem Claw? And also, what are the best practices that you can use, maybe you can inspire to, if you want to build something that looks like something that you will use on production tomorrow with AI help. So first of all, plan hard. So you don't want the AI to jump straight into the code. You want to use your seniority and your expertise as much as possible to define things in advance and try to understand how the model would like to build some certain things, to then steer it, and then essentially study the architecture and design it with the model, still at high level. What you will do with your junior developers that have to build something, and you sit in a room, in a meeting room, and you try to sketch something. And this is exactly what you can do with your AI. Before, instead of unleash that right onto your code base, just try to make up their minds and try to steer them in a way that the final design looks like something solid. For example, I had so many tests implemented because for me it was the first thing that was really important to achieve, and it was to, first of all, as a first task, comply with what the challenge for features were requesting. So, for example, use of Telegram, usage of the free tier, the user memory, that in this case is a user brain agent, needed to work reliably and also needed to be testable. And it was a quick and dirty solution that eventually, for example, it was still working with slash commands. That is something that you can still use today, but it was quick and dirty, let's say. So that was for me something that I was able to test and reason on with AI, and also have something practical that was setting all the guarantees, also in terms of testing. And there was no wow effect. That wow effect came at the very last, for me at least, because that is very subjective. So everything needed to be testable and predictable. And of course, you don't want to hack around Telegram API or creating fake users to just test your things. I don't recommend. So that's why I also built the integration harness that was simulating essentially Telegram servers with very simple operations. That is the one that eventually we are going to use. And then that way I was able to assert how the code that was getting built was calling Telegram and would have called the production, let's say, environment of Telegram. Yeah, so first thing, comply with the core challenge requirements. And that was something that I was then able to manually verify. Not only in terms of code, but really in terms of architecture. So even before the code was developed, I defined all those things that I wanted to see. And then after I saw them, of course, it doesn't necessarily mean that it will implement a solution that is perfect from the very beginning. But let's say if you are able to prime the model with the very important thing that you really want to see, and you stress it maybe even a little bit more in the prompt, then you are able to achieve something that is nice. Yeah, so after that, I had already a big bunch of tests. I think it was around 70 or 50 or 70, yeah, something like that. and did the integration harness that was simulating Telegram. And then after manually verifying that it was doing the right thing, and also testing that locally with the local instance, I was able to then pass on the second step. So all the things that you see here, for example, commands is here from the very beginning, and user brain is here from the very beginning. So this is dedicated to command parsing. And then of course the config, and I love that. I love that there is a dedicated config, and in here you find everything that is configurable, and including the secrets, obviously, and of course also the other sub agents are here from the very beginning. Maybe not in the form that they are now, but I said that I wanted to really dedicate specific tools to specific agents, and that for me was a winning thing to implement, because eventually when you are able to divide your code semantically into separate semantic pieces that in our case are agents, in case of Golem, then you're also able to assert on them separately and maybe verify the upload when something goes wrong. And yeah, simply makes sense. It gives you eventually a structure that makes sense. And the library eventually, for me, it was simply a way to wire things up. So as you can see here, all those are the modules that eventually were part of the project that are here. And when we build something, actually, let's do that. I like to run Golem server Dockerized, but you don't have to do that. Of course, there's a container running. Okay, let's see that. All right, let's stop it. So yeah, so now we have a Golem server running. First of all, we have any question before we pass into the more live demo?
No questions yet.
Okay. So the Golem server now is running and it's containerized, but that's just an implementation detail. We have something that builds. That's good. That's always good. And you can also, of course, run tests. And you can see that there are many parts of the code that will get tested. This excludes the integration test harness for Telegram. That's a separate step, requires separate step. But that makes sure that at least on the unit test level, all your code is tested. And if you did the right assertion, of course, or if the AI did them for you and you verified them, then the thing that is getting built is correct. Now, it'll take a little bit of time, but eventually it should run the tests. And meanwhile, I see that I have my image, my background, not exactly as I would like to. Let me see if I can flip it. Do you see it better? I hope so.
Looks fine. Oh, well,
Great.
just the code.
Okay. Yeah, so you can see that there are a lot of tests, and for each module, there are different tests that are testing that specific semantic component. So eventually, yeah, 179, but they were not here from the very beginning. They were implemented in subsequent steps. So now, let's suppose that we want to run this. Okay, close this. It's all detailed into the README. Actually, let's follow the README. I really want to go through it with you. You can also find a way to build and run locally. Thing that I need to do, I need to export my environment with all the secrets. And then there is a part that it's saying about local chat, building a local instance of Golem Claw. I have also my Telegram here, my conversation with the bot. At the moment, nothing is running, not even on the cloud. So if you type to it, it will not do anything. There's nothing that can ingest those messages. All right, so we deployed something. Yes, there is something. And also we want to, the local environment is automatically inferred in that case because we are using, it's the default. Yeah, now we want to just start the Polar agent. What the Polar agent does, it connects to Telegram using the credentials, and then it spins all the other agents. So if now yeah, you can see that every Telegram message to a bot starts with the /start. There's a little hack here that I will explain later. After the bot is receiving the /start, it knows that a new conversation was started, and so it's replying automatically with the help. The help is something you can also invoke with the /help. And also, Telegram is allowing you to have a very nice user interface when it comes to bots. So, for example, here you can define a list of commands that your bot is exposing. And let's say we want to know what the bot knows about me. So we say /me. The bot already, now that we didn't start type, knows that what is my name. It assumes that that is my preferred name. And then what is my Telegram handle? What is my Telegram user ID? What role I have? Because there is also, in my implementation, it assumes that the first user that writes is the admin. And then every other user start with 0 capabilities, and you have to essentially grant them capabilities. So there is this role-based access control. So don't be surprised if you maybe try to contact Golem Claw and schedule some reminders and you get ignored. Of course, this is something that we can lift. If you want, for example, a bot, you very likely want it to reply to everyone, or to at least a big set of users, and to grant a minimum set of capabilities. But in my case, since this was just for my own testing and for Zyverge and Golem team testing, then it was built this way with this restricted set of capabilities. But sure, it's something you can extend if you like. Now, what is LLM mode? And as you can see here, there are all the capabilities. What is the LLM mode? As I was saying, the LLM provider, it's something you can choose. As a default, it uses Gemini as the challenge requested, but you can always switch to Open Router. And for example, I tested with this model and it was working quite well. We didn't really write anything, and well, it saw me just now. We don't have any reminder, any shared events, any commitments, and it didn't learn anything from me. This is a thing maybe it's worth spending some time on. So I wanted the user to remember what are the things that you say in the chat. But I also wanted it to learn and leverage that on the durability layer offered by Golem to learn something specifically about the user that is not just the chat messages that you exchanged. Because at some point you might even want to, I don't know, you write something that you didn't want to write or something sensitive, and you might even want to clear your chat history. And if you do that, you will have to send another /start message, and that will effectively somehow reset what the bot knows about you, but it will not reset what it learned about you. And for example, if I say to the bot, I want to be called Mr. D, it will respond with something like this. And something like this, it's only happening after a tool call that it's basically specifically created when you want it to learn, you want the bot to learn something about you. So for example, now if we ask for me what it knows about you, you can see that learn from chat, name Mr. D. And if now we keep speaking and then we delete the conversation history, he will still remember those things. So you can, of course, also ask to forget. And it will tell you what it just forgot. And for example, in my case, since it's inferring that I'm Italian, or anyway, it is able to see some other metadata from my user that is basically not exposed here. At some point, it sometimes reply to me in Italian. So what I like to say is my preferred language to talk video is English. It will learn it as a fact. You can see that the bot is typing, meaning that is reasoning. And then it learned the LLM is reasoning. And then you see that it learned something about us, about me, and that my preferred language is English. Now, if we ask again, what does it know about me? Then you can see that the language is English. Of course, you don't have to use the select commands at all. This was something that was quick and dirty for me to just explore how it was working, but you can say, what do you know about me? And then somehow in some text form, it will tell you that my preferred language is English. I can say I like cars, but don't save it as a bug. So do I like cars? You can see that it didn't, I asked explicitly to not learn it as a fact, but it still remembers that I talk that about the fact that I like cars. Well, then of course depends on how smart the model is, but let's say if now we go and delete the chat history. You can inspect what the model knows, still knows that my preferred language is English. Do I like cars? It will tell you that it doesn't have any information on that. Of course, this is something that is implemented in the code, and it's, at the moment at least, regulated by the /star. So it will only send to the LLM something, some certain amount of previous messages, but also at most the one that arrived to the /star. And this is something that gives you somehow some control. So what's the weather like here? It will tell me that it doesn't know where I am. Yeah, this is a nice feature that I built for UX. So you can use the paperclip and then give some location. Let's give my location. All right. This is also a functional message tool response that is essentially saying that it noted that my location is Bari. And how it did that, the code is actually using OpenStreetMap to do some reverse geocoding. So from the coordinates that it receives in the message, it's actually able to infer my location, but also my time zone. And this is very important when you want to ask to schedule reminders, because otherwise it will assume that you are in UTC time zone. So instead, it needs to take into account that you might have different time zones. So this way, you can also store it as a fact that you are in this time zone. What do you know about me? You can see that the bot would say know in which city you're in, which country, what is your time zone, and what is your preferred language.
Daniele, maybe
Yeah,
you have time for a couple questions we
of
got from our
course.
audience today. First up, how hard would it be to port this to some other type of interface other than Telegram, say Slack or something similar?
Uh, how easy it will be?
Yeah, that's right. How easy
Yeah,
or hard would it be?
how easy or hard it will be. Yeah. So of course the bot is designed around Telegram. So for example, you will see that it has some nice UI buttons and something that Telegram allows you to define. For example, some HTML some HTML code into the messages that will give you some nice UX. And yeah. So if you want to do it in Slack, very likely, for example, or Discord, I think Discord is very easy to do. It kind of follows the same structure. So I'm not sure about that, of course, but essentially you will have to maybe uh, redesign some little part of the code where it kind of assembles those messages with HTML, and very likely you will see it's yeah, it's all should be all in here. And of course, there are other parts where you can see some HTML essentially in the, well, in other parts of the code. So maybe in that case, if you like to support another way to communicate with the bot, then you will have to abstract over those things. And then if it's Telegram, then it will keep using the old code. Otherwise, it will use the other communication uh, yeah. For example, well, I don't know in details how to do that in Slack or Discord, but very likely that part will need to be a little re-engineered to be more self-contained and maybe dedicated in a dedicated part of the code.
Fantastic. Thank you. Another question for you from our audience today. Nice work. I need to check the project details a bit more since the shared memory agent is currently acting as a singleton per user. Have you thought about using sharding to split the load?
Well, of course, if you would like to, so the shared memory agent is eventually built as a singleton because it needs to remember some certain cross-user um, things, for example, the commitments. And in that case, I will keep it as a singleton agent because you want a really single point that it's knowing everything about all the users of your application. So that part will not have a lot of loads unless you have 10,000 users. Then maybe that even in that case, I think at least will do the job. So you will have your users here with all their capabilities. And yeah, I don't think I will shard it personally.
I think
But
it's one of those things you do when you have to, right? It's like, okay,
yeah, if
when
you
you're
really have to,
successful enough to have that many users, yes, you shard this. And I think
if
we
you
actually
like to
did
have
see
that
that.
problem, then yeah.
Yeah. And then one more question for you, Daniele, so far, which is, can you add external information that it references? For example, perhaps a link to a document in Google Drive or something like that.
Yeah, when you do some specific operation or
That's all the context I have. That
oh,
question there. I
okay,
assume it's referencing like, can you say, hey, go and read what's in this Google Drive link and write a summary to me and send it to this email or something like that.
yeah, it needs to be able to do some web fetch, like it does some search, and we will see that later how it grabs information from the web. Um, I didn't test it with specific links. Mostly, I asked to do some other web searches, and we will see that. For sure, we could try, but yeah, I mean, I don't think it will be hard to implement anyway.
All right, thank you. Sorry to just derail you, but I wasn't sure if these questions were context
No
specific.
problem.
So please continue.
Thank you. So yeah, we see that now the bot knows these things about me. It doesn't yet know my email. So for example, let's yeah. All right, so it will remember my email as a fact. Now it knows where I am. So if I ask what's the weather like today, it should infer that I'm speaking about my current location because I didn't mention anything else. Then what it will do, it will check the facts and it will basically see that I'm based in Italy, in Bari, and then it will automatically do some weather fetching for me. So this is something that, for me, it was really the wow effect. So the multi-turn function calling, it made the messages a little more, I mean, it added the latency for sure, but it really did added that wow effect for me that wasn't there from the very beginning, because when I built just the core challenge compliance features, then of course I didn't implement any of this. For me, by the way, the second step was to implement some UX. Initially, the bot was not very pleasant to speak with. It didn't have the paperclip support. It didn't have the buttons or anything. The buttons you will see, because, for example, if we ask the LLM config, it will tell you that it's using auto, but you can also switch into open router. And now the further answers will come from open router and specifically from Gemma 4. And you can also switch the modal into Gemini or in Open Router to one specific model that you like. I will not show it today because otherwise the demo will become very long. But there are some slash commands that are not directly exposed to messages. For example, slash LLM or slash admin. Yeah, and essentially you have to configure them yourself. So from now, let's come back to use Gemini. Okay, so again, what's the weather? So what it will do, under the hood, it will do multi-turn function calling. So it will check my facts, understand that first of all, I want the weather, and I didn't mention a specific location, check my facts, find the location I'm in, and then check the weather with that location. And yeah, it will tell me what the weather looks like. And if I'm in an urgent need of a doctor, it also will infer that I need it next to me. And indeed, for example, it will search for doctors next to me. But it's not only, well, that depends, of course, on the model, how smart the model is. But you can also leverage really a lot this multi-turn function calling, and you can say like, email me the doctors nearby. As you can imagine, this is doing a web search, and it will also communicate with the email provider and send me the email. And see if that's true, if you didn't get into any spam folder. Yeah, so you can see that Golem Claw comes from this address, and then it did some search, and then it understood that I wanted this result via email. But we can take this even a little further, and we can say, since I was sailing, what are the beach locations, the top three near me? for all of them. Description, pros and cons, and user rating. Please send it over. Now, what we are instructing the model to do, it will do search about what are the nice beaches around here. And for all of them, we wanted to search some certain things, like, a brief description, pros and cons. And for all of that, very likely we'll have to do additional web search and then grasp this other information. And then eventually it will send it over. It will take a little bit more latency and more time compared to before. Actually, it was quick. Now let's see that email. If you ever visit Bali, then follow those instructions. So yeah, this is actually very nice. Yeah, personal tastes, of course. This is the closest. And yeah, I could ask for ranking them as well on user rating. It would have done that. Yeah, but basically this multi-turn function calling, for me, it was really the wow effect, because I was able to ask this set of questions. And it actually surprised me very much, because if at some point I found myself asking to the bot, what can you search online about me? And it really gave a precise description. And maybe it will do that again if we ask it today. What can you infer about what you can search? Now, it has my name. Okay. This time it doesn't want to do that. That depends on how the model feels like in that specific moment. I think, yeah, somehow, sometimes it replies that it cannot search for sensitive informations. But if you keep talking with him and you kind of convince him to do that, then, well, sometimes it will also reply. And it gave me back a message with a very precise description, saying that I work for Zyverge. I'm a senior software engineer. I like cats and I like sailing. And it was very surprising. And I found myself, how did you get this information? And it replied, I was able to, of course, find it on LinkedIn and then also on my other personal social media accounts. And well, it was surprising. And sometimes models surprise us. And this is while I was testing Golem Claw, it really surprised me. It was more or less at the end of the implementation. So the wow effect was already there. And then this was really, for me, like, oh, okay, this is surprising, nicely surprising. So what are the way, in what is in my suggestion if you would like to build something like that? Well, more or less the same thing when you are in time constraint and you are building something very, very important. So first of all, if there is a challenge that you're trying to solve it quick and dirty, and then implement assertions that are able to write that onto the stone, and this thing will not go away. It will keep being repeatable, and you will be able to test that all the core business logic works. And then you can only use AI at that point to enhance. And when you enhance, you still have your test and test harness, in the case of Telegram, that serve as a guardrail. But then, of course, your own eyes, because you want to review what the agent is building for you. So yeah, in my case, it was more or less 4 steps: building the core, challenge compliance, then UX, and lifecycle improvements, all these things that you saw, for example, the HTML rendering of some certain messages, the buttons, the action shortcuts, like those small buttons here. The pagination for long lists, we didn't see the reminders. So, for example, remind me in 2 minutes about our car keys. I don't know. So and then you can say, email me, email my reminders on today. And this is something you will find very useful when you are talking with a real assistant. So first of all, then core challenge compliance, then UX and lifecycle improvements. That for me was, for example, the LLM provider choosing, the role-based access control, and the fallback on Wikipedia, because if you just want to test and you don't want to create any API key for Serper or for Brave, then at least you can go back and do some Wikipedia search that is built into the code. And then after you have all those things built in, and you're able, of course, to iterate till when it doesn't satisfy you, then you add the wow effect. The reminder of today is the car keys, and then soon you will see the reminder popping up into this window. And then only at that point you harden for reliability even more. In my case, it was adjusting the system prompt and validation around tools and some little hallucination guardrails. For example, when it didn't know my email, sometimes it was hallucinating it. And yeah, eventually it was really, really pleasant to implement. Especially while sailing. But this means that you can do, with AI agents, you can do even more powerful things nowadays, and we all know that. But it's important how you use them, how disciplined you are, in my opinion, of course, when you use them. And this will make you even better senior software engineer if you learn how to use at best the AI and all those possibilities we have to develop nice code today. Yeah, the reminder came about my car keys. So it was a great experience. Thank you. And thank you to all the Golem team for providing such amazing features to work on.
Thank you so much for that very fascinating walkthrough, Daniel. I think probably I'm speaking for a lot of attendees of today's live stream when I say, wow, you actually managed to do quite a lot in the span of 48 hours on a sailboat while you were hopefully enjoying yourself as well. What do you
Yes.
think that says about the future of coding agents?
It's a new world of new possibilities. It can make people very much more productive. It also can be used, as all the tools can be used in a more harmful way. And this all depends on how you are able to guardrail it and how you are able to verify what is able to build, because those tools are very powerful. And I think people doesn't have to be scared that those things are happening today. The important thing is to learn how to use them at best and make them you being a better engineer.
Makes sense. So you've had a chance to watch Golem evolve because you have participated in, I think, maybe not the first hackathon, but certainly very early on, I think in our hackathons, you participated in them. Probably every single hackathon, you're like, oh, this is a huge pain, but I'll go ahead and do it anyway. But that pain, hopefully, over time, we've kept on addressing those pains, making things simpler. What would you say right now is the biggest pain point in Golem 1.5?
Um, Honestly, it was so easy to build something like this that it's hard to answer this question. Um, well,
I
of
don't mind
course,
that, but honestly, if you have like, even if it's not that big a pain, just knowing like the worst part of the experience for you, I think would be great.
yeah, I mean, I know that my code, like other people code, was unfortunately triggering some weird behavior on the Golem cloud. server. And well, I'm sorry if that gave you additional headaches, but yeah, for sure. Like I think mm, keep doing those events, and I hope that the more complex the code you can build on Golem, the more you are able to spot um, edge cases like the one that happened,
Yes,
and
that's right.
really make Golem even better. And I think right now the thing that really, well, we need people using Golem even more extensively and with more complex code, because we really want that all this the the platform that you built, it's 200% robust, and it is already. But yeah, I think focusing on that, and like I'm sure you did already and you will keep doing, will make the experience of all Golem users even more pleasant.
In fact, you named one of the major things we're focusing on for 1.6, which is obviously right now we don't have a cloud offering of Golem. It's just the open source, so you
Yes.
have to do it yourself. We have what we call the developer preview, which is basically us throwing it in AWS and hoping that it runs. And of course, that we found out during the hackathon that runaway loops and all kinds of crazy stuff can actually take that down pretty easy. And so one of the things for 1.6 is we want to get everything into a place where we can actually have a hosted solution for Golem. So people who don't want to grab the source code and host it on their own can just stick it in our cloud instead of having to run anything on their own. And that's one of the major themes of, I think, 1.6 is just us doing that architectural hardening and observability and all that fun stuff that we need to do in order to basically host Golem in the cloud in a way that's robust against the craziest things that went on. Like people had
But
bugs in their
apparently, AI models like to implement really
yes,
well. I know that more than the one candidate actually triggered some weird, the same weird behavior actually on the Golem Cloud.
that's right,
So yeah.
that's right. Yes,
Um, Another thing that I might suggest, but I think it's already happening in 1.5. Before I was having, for example, the some yeah some hard time kind of migrating old projects created with old versions of Golem into
yes,
the new structures, or anyway, new um, yeah. um, New manifest versions, new structure, new file structure, and now I think it's pretty stable. But I think if that could be even more automated, I think it's already happening in the last version. But if that could have been even more automated, that would be great.
absolutely. Yeah, we made the decision earlier on to basically not spend a lot of time focusing on backward compatibility, rather to get the core feature set right. And now that we've sort of, I think, pretty much done that going forward, we have the tools in place to allow us to do structured upgrades to manifest files, for example. And with skill delivery in place, we can actually deliver skills to your agents that enable them to upgrade an older version of, like, let's say you chose the TypeScript SDK and we change it for the next version in 1.6, a skill to do that targeted upgrade for you, so you don't have to worry about the changes yourself.
Can't wait
And
to use that.
thank you for that. That I really appreciate that feedback. Another question for you, because I was actually a little surprised that you went with our Rust support rather than our TypeScript support. And the reason for that is, even though Golem started off with just Rust support and having, I think,
Mhm.
pretty decent Rust support, it's quickly been eclipsed, I think, in some ways by our TypeScript support. The TypeScript support is so good, you can just use all these open source TypeScript libraries and run them directly on Golem. You don't have to do anything. So, what made you choose Rust instead of TypeScript?
I
Not that I
Personal
mind.
preference. No, it's just personal preference. But you're totally right. I saw also in the previous Golem releases what TypeScript was able to do. Indeed, you didn't have Rust support before in some previous release, and I was really mind blown by it. And it was just matter of preference. I really
Yes,
like Rust, and yeah, I find
as
myself.
we do as well. Golem is implemented in 100% Rust, and I think it's a great language for building agents. I really do.
Yeah, And I'm glad that you also support Scala. However, I used in Scala for so many years that I can't wait to use something different. So I always find myself
Yes,
choosing Rust, and yeah, it was automatic choice.
that's great to see that. All right. Well, thank you, Daniele, so much for appearing on this live stream and showing people what you built and how you built it and giving them tips. And I encourage everyone who's watching this live stream now, if you're interested in giving Golem a try, it's open source, just grab it. You can point your coding agent to it. It'll download it. It'll install it. It'll build you a agent all by itself, a custom agent in TypeScript or Moonbit or Scala or Rust or some other languages that could be made to work in the future. So give it a try and let us know what you think. I think we're heading into interesting territory where building agents of the type that you've seen here, that Daniele built over a weekend, more or less, on a sailboat, is becoming more accessible to people. People can do fun stuff without having to have extremely deep background expertise and lots of extra time. So give Golem a try. Build some sort of custom agent to do something and let us know what you think.
And if I can add some little closing statement, I think this was a demonstration that durable execution. It's really even more with Golem 1.5. It allows you to spend less effort on failure plumbing and more on building the nice solid business logic that you would like to see in your code. And Golem totally allows you to do that even more with 1.5 features. So thank you really for the hard work. That is very appreciated as a Golem user.
It's been very satisfying for me to see just the quality of the hackathon entries going up and them getting much more ambitious over time and also becoming much more reliable. And it says, okay, we're working on the right stuff. It's a long road. Building a agent runtime, a durable agent runtime, is not a simple thing, and we have to get a lot of things right. But it's encouraging to see folks like you go out there and build something amazing on Golem in 48 hours. That's just like the biggest payoff for all the hours that we spend behind the scenes trying to make this stuff good and make it accessible. All right,
Absolutely.
thank you so much. Congratulations again, Daniele. And until
Thank
the
you.
next hackathon, I'll
Yes.
see you
See you
later.
all in the next hackathon.